Hi, my name is Danica Johnson, and I am going to read my occasional essay for English 215. I titled my essay Unexpected Rewards. I believe there are certain events in everyone's lives that leave an imprint and stay with them for years after. Recently, I experienced such an event, and I feel it is worth writing about. I currently work full-time as a certified surgical technologist at Banner University Medical Center in Phoenix, Arizona. My job entails that I work in the operating room, setting up the sterile field, ensuring that I have the necessary instrumentation, supplies, and equipment that the surgeons may need throughout the procedure, and then assisting the surgeon during the case. I work 12-hour shifts 3 times a week, specializing in neurosurgery, which means my cases are usually long and delicate. I'm also part of the neurosurgery call team, meaning I take a call for 7 days at a time, so that if any neurosurgery cases need to be done in the middle of the night or on weekends, I need to come into work to do those cases. Because of the acuity of the patients and the procedures, I need to be focused and attentive through the cases so that I am prepared and can react quickly in case anything goes wrong. At the end of my shifts, I'm usually exhausted and ready to relax both my mind and my feet. Last month, I was on call during a very busy and grueling week. By the time my weekend came, I was beyond tired and more than ready to catch up on some much-needed sleep. I soon found out that it was not meant to be, however. On Saturday morning, myself and the nurse on call were called in to do 2 surgical cases. We completed those 2 cases after over 6 hours and went home, only to be called back for another case. We then completed that case, and this time, before we even left the hospital, we were called back in yet again for one more case. The last case that we were called in for was the event that will stick in my mind and on my heart for years to come. The case was a 20-year-old man that dove headfirst into a pool that was too shallow, which resulted in a severely broken and misaligned neck, immediately rendering him paralyzed in all 4 limbs with only very limited sensation on his chest only. The loss of sensation of both arms and legs results from a complete spinal cord injury. Usually, the motive for completing a surgical spinal fusion for a patient with a complete spinal cord injury is solely for the purpose of stabilization, not for the hopes of regaining function. This is because it is unfortunately very unlikely that a patient with a complete spinal cord injury will regain any function below the level of their injury. The neurosurgeon that was doing the case is a highly honorable man that will always do everything he can for his patients. So although the patient's outlook was bleak, it was his hope to try his best by operating as soon as possible. The patient arrived by helicopter and was brought straight to the operating room. We performed the surgery over the next 2 hours with the sadness, with the thought that this young man would never walk or move his arms or legs again. As the procedure ended and the nurse and I stood by the patient as he woke from anesthesia, we couldn't believe our eyes because the patient began lifting his right arm towards his face, which is very common for patients waking up from anesthesia because they oftentimes try to grab at the oxygen mask on their face. Everyone in the room was in disbelief and so pleasantly surprised that the young man was able to regain movement in his right arm. After a 15-hour day of cases on that Saturday, it felt better knowing that we had managed that victory for that young man. On my drive home that night, I was tired but satisfied that we had helped so many patients that day. Then when I arrived home, I got an amazing text message from the surgeon from that day's cases. He states that he wanted to inform me that within 2 hours after we finished the young man's surgery, he began moving both of his arms and his legs. I was in awe. I felt so incredibly thankful and honored to have had any part in helping that young man regain the use of his arms and legs. That day, after so many hours of working that week, and missing out on time spent with my husband and my children on a Saturday, it was an unimaginable feeling knowing that our surgical team had such a major impact on that young man's life. I immediately felt like all of that time and effort were beyond worth it. This was an event that I know will stay in my mind for years to come. This was an event that reminds me why I work as hard as I do, because I love having the opportunity to help my patients and have a positive impact on the lives of my patients and their families. I will always remember this event. And that concludes my occasional essay. Thank you.